Well, howdy y'all. Welcome back to The Social Regressive, and I should welcome myself back. It's been a little bit since I've produced anything. Sorry about that. I've had some work projects and home projects, and now we're getting back to it. What we're talking about is social Darwinism, and I've kind of laid out the game plan in the past if you want to check out those videos. Today we're looking at specific evidence, especially in the West, of this social Darwinist mindset, how we're throwing out God, morality, objectivity, any kind of universal rules of operation between people, and instead we're kind of moving into a straight power structure where people simply say, do this, and certain people are just really willing to jump on it in order to be part of what they perceive to be the new future for the West. We're just going to operate along these lines, and we'll just try to grab whatever we can within it. And the first thing I'd like to point out is that social Darwinism is not something that's going to be addressed directly. So no one's going to walk up and say, "Hi, my name's Andy and I'm a social Darwinist. I'd like to displace you and just kind of grab whatever I can." Yeah, no one's going to do that. They're going to try to mask it with morality, try to make a moral case to you, but when you watch behavior, that's when things really start to break down. So we're going to take a look specifically at behavior that's going on in the West right now. So we're looking for people that are concerned with power, not principle. And again, this is in behavior, not so much with speech. And we're looking for, duplicity, where you see double standards and rules for thee and not for me. I think there's an example that is even a little bit better than what's going on with Leah Thomas right now, where, if you want to talk about somebody just plain using their power and influence and shoving people around in order to take what they want, Leah Thomas is great. But even better, I think, is this picture right here. If you were to grab somebody from just 5 years ago, just from a few years ago, from 10 years ago, whatever, and have them analyze this photo, it would be just perfectly straightforward. A man has beaten up a woman and he's wearing a shirt that seems to indicate that he's the victim. What in the world is going on here? So what, we have a deluded man that likes to beat up women and people are letting him? This guy's desperate for attention and worship. And at the same time thinking he's the victim. And what is up with the camera? Why is the camera covering what's obviously a woman over on this side of the picture? Well, this actually makes a whole ton of sense. We're going to take a look at this. Okay, that's the lens of reality. That's what a lot of you guys that watch this channel are going to see. That's what actually happened. But if you come through the lens of somebody that is emotionally manipulated, we're talking about the people that are kind of attracted to the woke idea, they are seeing a brave hero here, someone that has struggled through adversity. He's some kind of brave hero. He's standing tall against the haters that wanted to silence him and limit his opportunities. And think of all the opposition that he's faced just because, he's a woman that doesn't fit into the usual mold. What a brave guy. And from the social Darwinist perspective, this is from kind of the clearer view of the people that are just interested in power. These are the people that are manipulating the woke folks. They're really, remember that there are no heroes or villains. There's only what you dare to take. And so the mini woke, the allies, the emotionally manipulated people that we just talked about and what they see, those people are desperate to appear virtuous, and so the true social Darwinist that's looking at this through a power mindset can really mess with these guys pretty easily. The woke folks in colleges and just kind of out, the masses out there, they really have no real definable moral structure anymore. It's really more based upon emotion, whatever they feel like at the moment, and that's becoming more and more obvious. They've been conditioned to believe that their ancestors and maybe themselves are responsible for past atrocities like slavery and misogyny, and so they'll really do anything in order to appear like they're on the right side of history, even if they have no idea what that is. Now, the social Darwinists do know what the right side of history is, and that is the side that survives. Again, we're talking about not morality at all. We're talking about just survival and dominance. That's what these people are interested in. So what they're going to do is they're going to get the woke folks to prove their allegiance. So if you can't answer the question, what is a woman, then you're a perfect candidate to actually inherit the future that the social Darwinists have in mind for you. At least, for a time. You're going to be one of what they call the useful idiots. somebody that has kind of voluntarily given up their own will and conscience in order to at least, kind of feel like they're in the right spot. And they're going to react to kind of simple top-down instructions. The only thought process that they're going to be dealing with is, how to accomplish whatever is at hand. Now, bear in mind that in this photo, which is, kind of the public one that they decided to put out, that the actual woman, the actual victim in this is being hidden by the camera. So the social Darwinists that have put this into play, they know that they can't actually, really show what happened. They have to show their side of events and to try to appeal to the woke people. So they've really hidden the evidence of, what this woman's face looks like. And the really funny thing about this is that they have just perfectly used the camera, actually two cameras in this case. They're using one camera to frame the photo, where another camera is in the way of the woman's face, so you can't actually see reality in this picture, which I think is just a perfect metaphor for what's going on in the media right now. The media is not, but if you go to a journalism class, they're going to be talking about the great principles and stuff about how you're supposed to, show both sides of things, how you're supposed to not be biased, and they're actually going to give you various rules that you're supposed to follow for how a journalist is to behave. They're supposed to be kind of neutral about things and just report on the facts. Or you can use those rules, things that you aren't supposed to do in journalism, and you can just use them as the rules for how you are supposed to behave, and then you end up with modern journalism. The traditional goal of journalism and storytelling in the West has been to analyze the world around you and report back as accurately as possible. Now, obviously, everyone is limited in what they can perceive. Everyone has their own human limitations and their own biases. And we're going to have plenty of historical examples of people that, even despite that, have decided to report back incorrectly just based on what they want things to actually function like, how they want people to perceive the world. But we are at a high point right now where we have all of the major sources, all the major ways that you are finding out about the world, they're just completely untrustworthy. That they are reporting back what they want you to see, they're hiding evidence of certain things, and they're promoting evidence of others, or just plain, telling stories out of whole cloth to you. And we have CNN is just such a perfect example. Now, one thing to think about with all of these journalistic sources is that individually or as a group, a company can act in a social Darwinist fashion. A tribe can act in a social Darwinist fashion. A person can. As long as they are mostly concerned about continued existence and dominance, then they can kind of throw out everything else, all the other kind of greater virtues that we aspire to normally. So yeah, CNN's big question, I think, is how they're going to survive in the future. And I think they're seeing a much darker future than the rest of us were thinking about. To them, the future is bigger government, it's bigger monopolies. It's going to be, the future is the Great Reset, where everything has kind of been consolidated into these smaller kind of avenues of power that are going to be very powerful up at the top of everything. And I think their real goal is to be the new Pravda, to be the new single voice out there to everybody. And so they are going to dutifully now hide evidence and support certain narratives. So here are some examples. I went out, and this is just a little bit old, but I thought this was just perfect. The Ottawa truckers, when they had their convoy that came into Ottawa. If you went to CNN while this was very fresh, when they were just rolling in, this was big news for a lot of us in social media that were able to communicate with each other. But for the mainstream, it's like it didn't even exist. This is an example of what I found when I went to CNN.com and I looked up just the word convoy. This is the one word that was being used to describe this thing. And there's only one result, and it's a negative one. It's talking about the mess that they're making, about how there's some litter or something, and how they're causing a couple little problems. Is that what was really going on? No, it was a huge deal. And as you can see, Justin Trudeau, was he reacting to litter by, canceling people's bank accounts and shutting down GoFundMe and doing all this stuff? No, of course not. There was a lot of, this was a huge story, and CNN completely covered it up as if it didn't even exist. And speaking of that, what about Hunter Biden's laptop? Yeah, back when I took this screen capture, again, it didn't really exist, or it was questioning the sources of people saying that this existed. If you look up, just Hunter Biden laptop on CNN.com, go out there right now and see what you can find. If there's any other big kind of news item that you think CNN has, kind of a dog in the hunt to hide, check it out. And if you want to talk about double standards, look up the phrase Russian collusion and see what comes up. This one's great. My big takeaway with CNN after seeing some of these results here is that if CNN is not interested, you probably really should be, and you need to start looking at other sources where you can find information. If CNN is interested in something, you got to find out why. There's probably something that they're trying to deflect, like take the blame off somebody that's actually guilty, put it on somebody that's innocent. They are trying to flip the script, turn black into white. And if you take CNN's message as gospel, you're probably going to be in big trouble. Now let's take a look at some of the big movements that we have going on in schools and in corporations right now. Critical race theory. Is this about healing racial divides? Is this about us working together better? No, obviously not. If you look at the messages that are being preached on critical race theory in schools, if you get any of the messages coming back from your students about what they're actually teaching, and if you want to see what they taught in my school, again, I'll put a link up here to my own example. I was in a early critical race theory program back in the late 80s. And it was obvious to me at the time that the goal was not any kind of unification, getting people to work together better. This was purely about power and about kind of switching who had it and using people's morality, using people's emotions, their feelings of guilt in order to take control over things. It's not about healing tribal divides, and its purpose is really to fracture your school. And I've been hearing from some other folks in the comments about the kind of damage that can do, where it kind of pits different groups in schools against each other, so they're not really working together well. And the other purpose is really just to hand control over to the leftists. College graduates, you might have noticed, are professional offended resentment bearers. So they're going around being resentful for other people, even though, in a lot of cases, the people haven't been directly affected by anything that may have happened in the past. And, even if their own worldviews, that those are the people that actually caused that damage in the past, these people are just continually offended for other people. The whole thing is really about adopting somebody else's grudge and using it against them. It's about an end to forgiveness. This is about resentment and about keeping those things alive. It's not about ending it. And the same thing with DEI. This is the one that's going to affect corporations more. So if you have a diversity, equity, and inclusion panel at your business, then you're in for a world of hurt. It's not about providing opportunities to marginalized groups. Yes, it's going to have some of that effect, but it's really about virtue signaling, and it's about putting your company under the control of a leftist commissar. This person is a representative of the Great Reset, of the new state, of whatever, this new kind of power organization. That person is there to be a representative of that and to enforce the rules that they're going to come up with in the future, and those rules will change over time. Its purpose is really to fracture your organization, and again, just like with critical race theory, it's there to hand over control to leftists. A solid piece of evidence that DEI and critical race theory are not interested in unification. It's not about people working together. It's not about restoration, harmony, any of that stuff. If you want proof of this, I want you to go out and watch in the future and see how Martin Luther King Jr. is handled. You're going to see his name, you're going to see his face, and you're not going to hear his message. And not just his, because remember that this wasn't really his message to begin with. He was just taking the message in the Bible that people are equal in the eyes of God, and he was distributing that. He was just one voice among many. We had people of all different races and all different backgrounds, and they were all working together. And if you go look at some of the crowds in the early Martin Luther King Jr. speeches when he was in some of these large buildings, you're going to see folks all over the place, white, black, brown, whatever. And they all had that same message of unity and trying to, restore everybody into balance of what it should be. But you're going to see with DEI and with critical race theory that they will mention him, but just watch and see if they actually get into his message at all. Like if they produce critical parts of his speeches, they're not going to. And I've seen this all over the place where, you'll have Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and people will celebrate him, but then the message itself is gone. This is not about unity. This is about fractionalizing. I could easily list hundreds of examples of social Darwinism in the West, but I picked some that I thought would be a pretty good example of a pattern that you could look for, where you see apparent chaos, but people are really doubling down on it, or where you see a really stark disparity between action and speech, or certain speech being quelled. You're going to find social Darwinism hiding behind that, and you're going to find it a whole lot. So hopefully you can analyze your own news sources around you and see what kind of stories are floating out on the web and be able to analyze it that way. I actually do have a bunch that I had in here for this video, but I just had to kind of keep this a little bit tighter. I didn't want this video to get too long. But if I find something out there that I think is particularly interesting, I'll put it in the playlist. I'll just make a little snippet video. We'll talk about it. I'm sure there's going to be plenty in the future. But for now, in the next video, we're going to get into the doom of the left. We're going to talk about the doom of social progress and social Darwinism. Because even if these people win, they lose. Everybody loses. As if we put these people up at the top of things, like if we have these DEI folks at your company, if you have a CRT program in your school, if allowed to grow, if allowed to have any power, then it is going to spell the doom of companies, it's going to spell the doom of schools and learning in general. And in the political sphere, if these people really get to the top of culture and of politics, then actually everything comes down, including themselves. So check that out in the next video. Thanks a bunch for watching, you guys. We have some other fun things that are going to be coming up here in the future. We have a whole new build series we're going to get into. We're going to have a lot of fun. I'll see you around.
Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Even if you didn't like this particular content, go ahead and subscribe. There's probably something coming that's more up your alley. Check out this playlist right here. This is going to have videos in a similar vein to what you just watched. These two videos we cherry-picked for you. And finally, The Social Regressive is on Patreon. So you can become a patron of the destructive arts and earn some goodies while helping us to provide high-quality videos just by kicking us a few bucks a month. Thanks a bunch for your patronage.